Hey guys, how you doing? It's Harry from whippedcreamsounds.com today here with a Mr Carmack sound design tutorial. So first things first, I'm going to play you the chord that we're going to be making. Now this chord is mainly designed in Serum, but it uses some auto panning, but in most stores you'll have auto pan so you can follow along with your selected plugin. In FL Studio they have one, in Logic they have one, in Cubase, in all of them they have one, so you can follow along too. Just before we start, if you didn't know, I've done a full written tutorial of Mr Carmack's At Night track, which is absolutely insane. I love it, and I dissected the chords to it, explained the theory, and put it all nicely with neat diagrams and stuff so you can see very easily over on the website. That'll be in the link in the box below. You'll also be able to get these MIDI files and this Serum preset for free over on the website, and a pack is coming very soon, which is based around future R&B beats and all these types of beautiful lush sounding Medasin, Mr Carmack, Sam Gellaitry style stuff. So now we got the classic YouTube call to action stuff out of the way, let's actually dive into what you came for, which is the synth. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and initialize this preset so you know I'm not cheating, and we're going to start from scratch together. Also, just before we begin, while recording this, I did actually forget to turn off all of these down here. So when you're listening to the sound, you will hear a different rhythm. This is due to the auto pan, which will go through at the end. So if you aren't getting the same result as I'm playing while we're making this sound, then don't worry, it's because I made a not you. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go over to the sub oscillator, and you're going to turn on the sub oscillator and choose the pulse wave. Now the pulse wave is a very thin, raspy sounding wave, and it really makes this sound kind of very digital and hollow and nice. You'll notice with Carmack's songs he uses a lot of kind of weird sort of like hollow tonal stuff, and the pulse wave is definitely one he uses a lot. It's either that or a square wave. Now what you're going to do with this is you're going to take the octave up one, and we're just going to put the level back down over here to around 30%. Let's have a listen to how the pulse wave sounds on its own. As you can hear, it's got that kind of like thin, kind of like mobile phone tone to it, and it just adds a little bit of height on top of the sound, as you'll hear later. Now if we go over to the noise, what we're going to do is we're going to go over into the analog noise, and we're going to go J106 down here, and we're just going to pop the pitch up to around 60%. Let's go to around 67. Now we're going to turn the level down, and later on we're going to add some envelope into this, and you'll see why, and I'll explain why when we get there. For that is all done there. Then we need to move on to oscillator A. Now oscillator A, you're going to go into basic shapes, and you're going to come over here and turn the wet position all the way to the right, not the wet position, the wavetable, sorry, and you're going to get this triangle saw wave. I couldn't for the life of me decide whether it was a saw wave or a triangle wave, and I believe Mr Carmack uses both saw waves and triangle waves a lot, so I chose this wavetable because you only have two oscillators in Serum, so I needed to have that triangle and saw sound, as well as the pulse and the next oscillator that we're going to put on. Now we're going to put the unison on 2, and then we're going to take the detune back to around 0.10, and then we're going to put the blend, it's going to be around the same as it is. Then we're going to take the level and we're going to pull it back to around 43%, and then later we're going to use some envelope modulation or LFO modulation on this to give a little bit more movement. Now the final thing you want to do on this is you want to take it down -7 cents or 6 cents, doesn't really matter which, and we're just going to do that to detune it a little bit. Onto oscillator B, we're going to go over to analog, and we're going to go to mellow but unstable. I absolutely love this wavetable. It is beautiful for those kind of warm sounding, like lo-fi-ish kind of future-y sounds. I just love it. We're going to take these semitones up to +7, and this is just going to add a little bit of extra kind of tone on the top of this synth, some more harmonics that just make it sound much better and make it pop out. Then after we've done that, we're going to go down to unison and we're going to click that to 2, and we're going to take the unison to about 0.09. We're going to leave the blend the exact same, and we're going to leave the level the exact same, really, maybe just a touch off the edge. Now later on in this patch, we are going to be modulating the wavetable position and the level, but let's move on to the filter. And for the filter, we're going to turn it on and we're going to send everything to it. And then we're going to go over to the bandpass filter. Now for this, you'll want a bandpass 12, and the bandpass is where a lot of the tone of this sound is coming from. A lot of the character of Mr Carmack's plucks come from the bandpass filter, because it adds a kind of like weird tone when you automate it and when you add it to the LFOs and the envelopes, and it just sounds really cool. So if you're wondering how he kind of gets that kind of sound, I can't do it with my mouth, but he uses the bandpass filter. Now let's take a listen with just the bandpass filter on and everything we have so far. And as you can hear, that's shaping up really nicely. But the main source comes from the filter, like I said, and we're going to do a lot of clever modulation here. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take LFO 1 and you're just going to put it over on this little curve here, and then we're going to take the curve of this and we're going to kind of like curve it upwards, pull it down a bit. Then we're also going to put this and we're going to curve it upwards a bit as well. Now this we're going to use as kind of a envelope on this filter over here to make it move and switch around so it makes a cool sound. So before we apply it to the filter, we're just going to put trigger on there, which means it will trigger every time a new note is being played so we don't go out of time. And then we're just going to chuck it over on the cutoff over here. Now the cutoff will come up with these two things down here. To change that, you just want to go over to your matrix panel, and then you can click that button, and you want it to be facing upwards because we want to put the filter upwards every time the LFO goes. Now you're going to take the cutoff back to around there. Let's say that's about 36 Hertz. And we're going to put this up to around the middle, maybe a little bit past at around 44. So that's looking all good there. If we have a listen with the LFO, you'll hear it. Then we're going to take this LFO to an 1/8. And as you can hear, that's working really nicely with our auto pan settings down there that we have on, which we'll go over at the end of this sound. Now to create that kind of like wonky wobbly sound and swung sound, we want to add some more envelope modulation on this bandpass filter, and we're going to use a different LFO to do so. So I'm going to take LFO 2 and I'm going to create this shape like this. I'm going to leave it in the middle and I'm going to pop that up, and then we're going to push that down. We're going to put that to a 4th and leave it there, and we're going to set it to trigger so it triggers every single time. Then we're going to take the LFO over here and we're going to put the frequency up, and we're actually going to pull the frequency back a bit like that. And then pretty much this LFO is going to react in the same kind of timing, no, half timing to the other LFO. Now this adds a bit more depth to the sound and that kind of like swung wonky feel, because we've got two LFOs acting at different rates on two different items of the bandpass filter. If we take a listen with this added, and if we bypass it, it just adds a bit more kind of like width and depth to the sound. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's very minuscule, but it really does add just a slight bit more. Now what we're going to do on the filter as well, we're going to take the mix back a bit just to open it up, just so we got a bit more of a higher tone register sound. Then we're going to add an LFO3 to the wavetable position on the second oscillator. Now on the shape for the LFO, you're going to use a up saw wave type thing, like a ramp up. So you're just going to drag the middle part all the way to the right. And then we're going to use, not the BPM, we're going to just change the rate of the LFO to hertz. And we're going to take this down to around 0.8 hertz. And we're going to put this on the wavetable position. And we're just going to pop it all the way up. Now what this is going to do is it's going to cycle through the wavetable, and it's just going to make a nice natural sounding, mellow but unstable wavetable here. But we only want to do this once. We don't want it to act as a real LFO, so we're going to change this to envelope as well, and then we're just going to take a quick listen to the difference it makes. As you can hear, just as we start playing that, it just sounds a little bit more natural and it just sounds cooler. One thing I did forget to say is we're going to take LFO1 that we made earlier and we're going to pop this over on the noise oscillator, like I said, just to bring that noise up every single time this cutoff comes up as well. What that does is it just adds a little bit of height to the sound and just a little bit extra grip. Now we've got most of this stuff done on this panel, we're going to move over to the effects. And for the effects, we're going to be using another filter after the other filter. So for this, we're going to take the MG Low 12, we're going to put the cutoff all the way down, and we're going to put the mix all the way up. Then what we're going to do is we're going to modulate this cutoff as well with LFO1 again. So we're just going to pop the LFO1 on there, and we're going to take it up about to 70-ish. That'll do. Then we're going to open up a compressor and we're going to pop it below the filter, and we're going to turn on the multiband. Now the multiband we're going to be using as a kind of tone shaper. We're going to take the H, the highs, to 80%. We're going to take the mid to around 90-ish. And we're going to take the low to around 112. Yeah, that'll do. We're going to put the threshold up a little bit, leave the ratio, attack and release the same, and we're going to pop the gain up as well, just to add that gain that we're compressing downwards. Then we're going to go ahead and add an EQ after the compressor, and what we want to do is we want to take out the lows here, and we want to get rid of that little bump, so we're going to take the Q down. And we're going to put the frequency up to around 138 hertz here, and we're going to leave the gain the exact same. This just takes out a little bit of the low end and just leaves us a nice kind of less obtrusive low end with the rest of the elements that we're adding. Then on the end of this, we're going to pop a reverb, and we're just going to leave the size there, and we're going to put the decay down to around 3. We're going to put the low cut up to avoid any muddy frequencies coming through. We're going to take the high cut down like that, and we're going to leave the spin the exact same, but put the spin depth up a little bit. And then we've got the mix around 30-ish%. Now let's have a listen to everything with everything on. So once you're done with the effects, we're going to add some macros to this, and the macro is going to be used to control the height of the sound and kind of the cutoff of the sound. So we're just going to pop this up on the cutoff on this filter up here, and we're going to turn it down to around 39, and this is going to control the cutoff, and we can use this for nice automation and just to add a little bit extra movement to our sound. Then we're also going to take the exact same cutoff and we're going to pop it on the level, and we're also going to pop it on the level of mellow but unstable. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take back this down to around there on the level, and then we're also going to take this back on the level a little bit. When I was designing this sound, I noticed when I popped the cutoff up too high, it sounded way too harsh. So to basically prevent that, I added a little bit of a decrease on the saw wave, which I thought was causing the main issue. And then also added a little bit of increase on the mellow but unstable, just to add that extra warmth, like I said. Now you should have the exact same sound, and we're going to go over the automation that I used within this preset to make it sound better. But we're first going to go over the rack effects. So for this sound, I used a number of effects on the master channel, and here you can see I've got an EQ8 just taking out all the lows. I've taken out around the 484 hertz with a -4 decibel decrease, just to remove that kind of like horrible range mid-tone frequencies that you don't really want to hear in your music. Next, I put a little boost at around 4 kilohertz, and that was about 4.9 decibel boost, just to bring out a little bit of the highs. And then I also put a roll off here at around 12.4 kilohertz on the EQ8, just to remove some of those highs and make it sound less harsh. The next thing I put on this sound was the autopan, and this really changes the swingy vibe of it. If we take the autopan off and have a listen, it sounds very static and very boring, but if we pop the autopan on and we put the amount up 100%, we turn the phase all the way up to 360 degrees or 0 degrees. This acts as a tremolo or a kind of sidechain volume effect. We can then take the rate and we can put it down, and I put it on 3/16 because it sounded cool with what I was doing. And then I also automated it in the automation lane just to basically change the vibe round a bit. As you can see, the automation here goes from a fourth to 3/16, back to 5/16 to 3/16, then to a fourth, and then back to 3/16 for the whole range of that. If we turn it on and have a listen with the LFO movement, now, if that does not get your head moving, I do not know what will. That sounds absolutely awesome. It just adds such a bigger vibe to it. Then I added some parallel compression over here, which I just added a audio effect rack, and I just put a glue compressor on, put the threshold up really low to the -35. Then I pop the ratio up to 10:1, put the release down because we've got a fast pluck. We want the release to be releasing quick, and then the attack was quite slow on this as well. This basically just compresses it a absolute ton, and then we can mix it back in with the original chain, and it just makes it sound bigger and better. Then I also popped a limiter on this just to add a little bit of extra volume to it, and I put a 7 decibel increase, and then I added a stereo widener and took some of the width away because I didn't really want the width on this sound. I just want it to hit in the mid-range frequencies, and I just want it to hit in the mid stereo field, if that makes sense. Then another thing that was done with this sound was the cutoff automation, and the cutoff was just automated every end of a 4-bar, every end of a 2-bar, sorry, and it just ramps up, as you can see, and ramps up again. Now, alongside with that, we also had some automation on the autopan turning off exactly when this cutoff comes in, just so it can allow the original LFO in Serum to come through, rather than that LFO kind of pandering the sound a bit and making it sound a bit janky. As the cutoff's coming up, it just sounds a lot smoother with the autopan on there. Obviously, you can play around with all the different settings to your liking and automate this however you want to get it vibing with your track and your kind of drum swing, but it just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of listening. Then once you're done, you should have something sounding like this. Once you've had a listen, the last thing you got to do is head down to the comment section, hit the like button, and also hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if it did help you out. If it didn't help you out, leave a dislike and leave a comment on how I could improve. Also, I am taking requests for the sound design sessions, so if you do have an artist in mind that you want to learn how to make the sounds and improve your productions, then let me know in the comments below and I will dissect them. I've already had one recommendation from one dude, and that's 53 Thieves. That's coming very, very soon, so stay tuned for that. Other than that, head over to the website, check out all the different stuff. There's loads of free sample packs coming soon, and then I'm going to be doing some Serum preset packs, wavetable packs, paid sample packs, and all that kind of good stuff. There's also a load of free goodness and tutorials over on the website as well, so be sure to check that out. Anyway, I'm done with the self-promotion ramble. See you guys soon. Hope you have a good day, evening, morning, wherever you are.